everyone, in this video we're going to be making challah bread. And challah bread is a bread that has its roots in Jewish culture, but it works on any table, and I highly recommend you try making it because it gives you a great sense of satisfaction. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to add 2.5 cups of warm water to the bowl of a stand mixer. And it is really important that this be warm and not hot or cold, and there's some specific reasons that we're going to be doing this since it's a yeast bread. So it needs to be between about 110 and 120, and that's going to activate the yeast but not kill it. So you want it just barely lukewarm and not scalding hot, because otherwise the yeast will just croak. They'll be gone. So then we're going to be using the dough hook for this dough, and most of the time with yeast breads you are going to be using the dough hook. That's literally what it's designed for, and it has this nice little circle at the top that makes it a little more difficult for the dough to climb the hook. Then you are going to add 1 tablespoon of yeast to the warm water and kind of sprinkle it over top of the water so that it spreads out. That's making it a little bit easier for it to dissolve and distribute in that water so that it doesn't chunk up. Then we're going to be adding 1/2 cup of honey to the mixer. And if you are worried about whether or not your yeast is old or anything, do it up to this step, and then after that, let it sit for a little bit and see that if that honey and the warm water activates the yeast and makes it bubble. So then you're going to add 4 tablespoons of oil, and you want this to be a neutral flavored oil, like a vegetable oil or canola oil, avocado oil, something that just doesn't have a lot of flavor to it. Then we're going to add 2 eggs. This dough has a lot of fat in it because it is going to be a very soft dough. It's a rich dough. And so you're just going to put that dough hook on and mix it until those eggs are kind of broken up. And this is going to help us get the flour incorporated a little bit easier. Then you are going to add 6 cups of flour. And keep in mind, this may not be all the flour that you add. It probably will not be. But we're going to turn that mixer on after we add those 6 cups. And you want to turn it on stir. Otherwise, you will floof flour all over your kitchen. So you're going to mix this until all the flour is worked in and the dough is very cohesive and looks all the same before we do any additional flour adding or anything, just because we want to make sure that it's very incorporated and that all those liquid ingredients have gotten worked in. So now we are going to start adding your flour in to adjust the consistency. And we're adding it until the dough cleans the side of the bowl, but it might be a little bit easier to add this slowly and then it might not floof as much. But also, this is a whole lot of flour, so the dough is probably going to climb the hook in this case. You can literally see the top of my mixer bouncing. And so if it does that, you need to stop it and put the dough back down in the bottom of the bowl. But as you can see, I'm having a little bit of a hard time with fighting this. If that happens with your mixer, it's okay. Just pull that dough down below the round disc that's at the top of it. And if it climbs above that disc, you are going to want to turn that off because the little area at the top is going to literally contaminate the dough. So after that, we're going to knead the dough until it's smooth and elastic. You can do this in the bowl of the mixer with the dough hook, but sometimes it's more fun to kind of get your hands in there and really work it, and it just makes you feel more connected to the process, which I think is pretty cool. But you're just going to knead this until the top of it is smooth and elastic, and you can really see, if you're looking at the dough, that it's really come together and it's nice and almost shiny. And then once it gets very smooth, you are going to put it back in that bowl, oil the bowl and the dough, and we're going to let it rise. So you want to let it rise until it's doubled in size. And you can either put a rubber band around the dough, whatever container it's in, to see how much far it's risen. I like to take a picture of it to see how far it's risen, but just whatever works for you. After it is doubled, you're going to cut the dough in half. This recipe is going to make 2 loaves of a pretty large size, and so cut it in half, and you want to press all those bubbles out. That's called punching down, and this is done in pretty much any yeast bread because you're just redistributing that air in the dough, and this is going to give it the chance to rise again, develop a little more flavor. Then we are going to cut that half of the dough into even-sized thirds. So we are taking into 3 pieces, and this is good because we're going to be braiding this bread. And then you want to roll that into logs that are a little bit longer than the pan that you're going to use. And just stretch them over the pan. And you are going to be fighting your parchment a little bit, but it is worth it to put parchment on the pan. And start about an inch from the top, inch or 2 from the top with that braiding. And you're going to go right over middle, left over middle, right over middle, left over middle until all of it is braided, and the top of it's not done yet, so you're just going to kind of work that until it looks even, and then pinch those ends together very tightly so your braid doesn't unravel, and then you're going to tuck the ends kind of underneath the bread, and that is going to keep it from unraveling and getting weird. So if you want to make rolls, so little tiny challah breads, then you can do that as well. Starts out very much the same way, except you're taking that whole thing and rolling it into a log. And this is to just kind of get it even and to get it to where you can kind of guess that you've got even sized pieces. So you're going to cut that dough, and this is called a bench scraper, and it is great for cutting dough. But you're just going to cut the dough into little pieces that are evenly sized. And I usually roll just a few at a time so that the dough doesn't dry out as you're doing this. But then roll those 3 pieces into a log, just like you did before, but these are just going to be a little thinner and a little smaller. And I like to braid these off of the pan because you're making so many of them. But you're going to do the same thing, right over middle, left over middle, right over middle, left over middle, until you get it completely braided. And it's just like braiding hair. Then you are going to pinch those ends together and tuck those underneath. And this is going to be pretty easy to do because we are going to be lifting this up and putting it onto the pan. And like I said, the tighter that you pinch those, the better off you are, because you are not going to want to have unraveled bread. So just continue that until you get the number of rolls that you like. This is literally the process that I do for holidays, where I will make the big one to be pretty on the table, and then the rolls are going to be the rest of it. You can also make any size loaves with this. So for the purposes of the video, I'm just making another smaller roll on top of this. And so this is just going to be another smaller loaf of bread. So you're going to cover these lightly with plastic wrap, or I like to put a tea towel over it as well, just to protect it from the elements so that stuff doesn't drop on it. And then you're going to let that rise until it has just gotten to just about 1/3 bigger. So as you can see, this is rising on the pan. And then once it gets to that 1/3 bigger, you are going to bake these off in the oven. But there's a little bit of a process before that you need to do. So once it's risen, you're going to beat together some eggs and water, usually about a tablespoon of water per egg. And you are going to brush each of these loaves with that egg wash. And that's what's going to give you that nice, pretty brown crust on there. And this works with any baked product. Getting an egg wash on there is going to make it nice and brown in the end, because those fats are going to brown a little bit. You can also sprinkle these with poppy seeds or sesame seeds, and that's actually pretty traditional for challah bread. So whatever your preference is, you can leave them plain or put poppy seeds or sesame seeds. And then you're going to bake these at 350 for 20 to 30 minutes until they get brown. And the larger loaves are going to take a little longer than the rolls will, but they end up being very shiny and pretty because of that egg wash and just rise up gorgeously. Thank you so much for watching this video, and please don't forget to share this out with anybody that you know that might be interested in this. Comment and subscribing helps us out a ton.